So, socio and religious causes. Under the socio and religious causes, we have several subheadings. So, few subheadings you should remember and you should know. First is interference in social traditions and customs. Under interference in social customs, the East India Company, the British government, first abolished the practice of sati. I suppose all of you know what sati is. Sati is an immolation of a widow, sacrifice of a widow in the fire of her husband. So if a husband died, his wife who has become widow will have to commit suicide in the fire of her own husband. Fire here means pile of dry woods on which the dead body is kept, placed and burnt in burial ceremony. And this custom existed in India till 1829. It was a very cruel practice, very inhuman practice, which the British government would not allow. And when British government passed an act prohibiting the practice of sati, a large number of Indians opposed this practice. But they could do nothing because the British was mighty, British was all powerful. But that certainly displeased a large section of Indian people. That was the abolition of Sati Act 1829. Another law that was passed was Widow Remarriage Act. The widow remarried now. In 1829, the practice of sati was stopped. And before I explain this point, I want to tell you two incidents. The last sati practice in India. That means even after this law was passed, sati was practiced in India. And last sati practice in India was 2002. Imagine, just 18 years ago. 2002, it was practiced in Rajasthan. A 65-year-old woman committed sati. 21st century incident. And before that, in Rajasthan, 1987, an 18-year-old widow committed sati. Her name was Roop Kanwar. And the people of that locality, they proclaimed her goddess. So imagine what kind of practice we had in our country. And we continued such practices. Had British not passed such laws, probably even today they would practice those evil practices. So similarly now, Widow Remarriage Act. Now the widow cannot be forced to commit sati, but there will be so many widows. So British government passed an act which allowed those widows to marry again. That means the husband died, that woman can make a choice. If she wanted to marry and live a family life again, nobody can stop. That went against the custom of India. So again, many people or most of the people opposed this law, but they could do nothing against the British government. In 1850, the British passed another act that is called Hindu Law of Property Act, and before 1850, if any Hindu accepted Christianity, if any Hindu was converted into Christianity, that person will not have the right to inherit father's property. In other words, that was to discourage. That means if you are embracing Christianity, you should think before that, because you are not going to get any share of your father's property. But in 1850, the British government passed an act which clearly said that if any Hindus or any Indians who accepted Christianity, they will still have the right to father's property. They will not be deprived of father's property. In other words, this was an incentive that you lose nothing if you accept Christianity. Whereas earlier, there was disincentive because you are going to lose the share of your father's property. So all this interference in their religious and social customs angered the large section of Indian population. And next is the activities of Christian missionaries. When the East India Company came, there were many Christian missionaries in India also. And they started their schools, they started their hospitals, and in schools, they started teaching the students Bible. And that was seen as an attempt to convert Indians into Christianity. So such activities were also not welcomed by a large section of Indian population. Then innovation, new innovations. The East India Company came to India in order to make huge amount of money here. Their eyes were on the wealth of the country. They were business people. So their main purpose was to exploit the natural resources of our country. Therefore, they wanted to have a good networking of transport system, good networking of communication system. So they laid the railways so that the goods, the raw materials would be transported from one place to another place without much delay. Quick transportation of goods from one place to another place. That was the purpose to lay railways in India. But this was not welcomed by Indian people. What the Orthodox Hindus and Muslims thought was that this was an attempt to define the purity of caste system in India. the British people introduced railways in order to make the caste system impure and make the caste system die a natural death. Because they saw that railways had the coaches, the compartments, and same coaches, same compartments were used by lower caste people, the higher caste people, in other words, the Brahmins, Sudras, Kshatriyas, all of them had to enter into the same compartment. So there is no separate compartment for lower caste and higher caste, and that the Brahmins felt that was an attempt to defile the purity of the caste system. In the same way, when they started erecting the telegraph poles, the good number of Pandits, they misunderstood and they told the common people that the British were erecting those poles in order to hang those Indians who would revolt against the British, who would oppose the British in our country. So that way, the new innovations of railways, new innovations of telegraphs were not welcomed by the Indian people. And next is Western education. The East India Company also started Western education, and a lot of Indians were going to those schools where the students were taught mainly grammar, logic, and those schools did not give any importance to traditional Islamic and Hindu studies. So the Maulvis and the Pandits, they opposed the Western education because they were to lose their own jobs. But they were powerful group of people in India. They had a very good hold on Indian people. So they opposed the Western education, and all these causes made Indian people unhappy. As a result, they came together and opposed the British regime, opposed the East India Company. So these political and social causes played a very, very important role in the first war of independence. And you should know these political causes, socio-religious causes of the Sepoy Mutiny. So we will stop here today, and other remaining economic and military causes you read your own, because those causes are simple to understand.